on yet another episode of Pete Helps Out His Brother. This time it's my middle brother, and we're installing a set of KW coilovers on his BMW F10 535i. You may remember this car from a previous video where we put a whole Dynon engine software package on it, made like 60 wheel horsepower. Link up in the corner if you're interested in that. But today we are dealing with the suspension, and the reason is it's got a set of Dynon springs on it which make the car look absolutely fantastic. A little on the low side for my brother, and the problem is the stock shocks are on here and the ride is just kind of like a bouncy limo. It doesn't have enough shock, so we're going to be upgrading to a set of KW V3 coilovers, which should be able to give us ultimate adjustment and firm up the ride, make it sportier, and raise it a bit, because as you can see, the front and rear here, it's just a little too low for my brother's aggressive driving. The first part of the job is to raise the car up. We've got our trusty quick jack at it again. Then we're going to take a wheel off and move on to the suspension. This car is actually all-wheel drive, so it's going to require a couple extra steps to get this spring and shock out, but we'll show you that in a sec. I'm going to start off by removing the sway bar end link because it's the easiest thing to do. You just grab an 18 mil socket, put it on there, and it's off. Would you look at that? Next up, we're going to remove the nut and bolt that hold the lower shock in place here, and probably going to need a gun for it. The gun does work wonders here. There we go. And then it should slide out. Bam. Next up here, we're actually going to remove the bolts that hold this upper control arm, so then we can swing this out of the way, turn it, and slide the entire shock and spring assembly out. And now, in order to remove the upper control arm, this bolt's got to come out right here. And it's pretty easy access, but on the other side, which we've already done, you got to move the power steering reservoir to get at it, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but still accessible, so it's not a big deal. All right. Now there is a nut on the other side, so once you loosen this a little bit here, you're gonna have to go underneath, slide your wrench onto the nut, and then, holy smoke,
the world's longest bolt.
There we go. Fantastic. Now we're gonna loosen all three top mount bolts here and remove them. The reason why we're doing this first before we get to removing the control arm is now we've got a bunch of play here. Let me show you. So now we have a bunch of play in our shock, and that means we can get to the bolt here. It's probably pretty hard to see, but there's a bolt on the other side of the control arm. That is one long bolt. So if you don't have a Milwaukee tool, it's gonna take you a while. This way, I feel like we save about, 3-4 minutes loosening it this way. I'm telling you, if you didn't have that tool, you'd be wasting so much time. There's very little space here to get a wrench in to turn it.
Yeah, it's a super long bolt, yeah.
She's a long one. Oh, there it is. There's the bolt.
Victory.
And now with that out, oop,
parts are flying.
That's the Milwaukee wrench.
Oh, yeah.
You can take this. So see here, now you got to be careful with a bunch of these sensor lines. So what I'm going to do is try to pop it out without wrecking it somewhere here. That gives us a little bit more clearance.
Black, yeah.
Now, take that, rotate it this way, and the fun job of finessing the whole suspension out here commences. Oh, you're gonna have to battle with this. It took me a while on the other side as well to get this thing out. Damn sway bar is always in the way. Caught in this car. Now we're, see this bracket here? It's caught up on that.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Wow.
Oh.
All right. Victory.
I'm starting to sweat here. I don't know if this is worth it. The bro's nice, but he's not that nice.
He's a lawyer, Pete. He can get you out of trouble sometimes, so be
It's
good
true.
to him.
That is true.
Pete likes to use the spring compressor as the professional shop manual would have you do this top hat removal, but I like to use the ghetto technique. I've done it a million times, and I haven't
Both
died
work,
yet,
so yeah.
I'm not too worried about it. Plus, this is a AC Schnitzer lowering spring, so
Yeah,
there's
they're
a
not
lot
dining
less.
ones,
They're
so
not
screw
dining,
that
that's
up.
right, they're AC Schnitzer. Not a lot of tension in the spring right now, so you'll see when I gun the top nut off that it might move this wheel a little bit to the left. So I literally just put the whole assembly between two wheels and tires here. Move this up to the back side. Just like that.
Wow.
She's done.
So anticlimactic.
That's it. Not reusing the factory
Yeah, why are we
bump
taking
stops.
this apart, DP?
Well, the KW kit doesn't come with these top hats. You can see why too. It's a pretty involved piece. So replacing this would be costly. So why not just reuse it? It's a nice piece. It's I think it's just a rubber bush in there, but anyway, it's a nice aluminum piece. So KW requires you reusing it. So this is your front KW V3 or Variant 3 coilover for the front of the car. It's obviously got a mainspring and a keeper spring or a helper spring down here, which really just keeps the whole spring assembly under tension when the car goes into full droop. So no rattling springs, in other words. Lots of nice details on this. Like they've put this plastic sheathing over the top of the spring to prevent any kind of squeaking noises up here. They've got a nice bushing between the two springs so that they can rotate freely without any binding. One of the cool things about KW, probably the thing I like most, frankly, about all the engineering they put into these, is how good their instructions are. They preset the shock valving from the factory, so they're at like 6 clicks out of 12 in the front and 9 clicks out of 12 on the rear. And that's kind of like their preferred setup for this car. Obviously they're adjustable, so we can change them to our tastes and our roads and so on, but I really like the fact that they preset them and they give you a recommended ride height range, so a minimum range and a maximum range. We've gone right in the middle of that range because in past experiences with V3s, like on my G35 and like on some Civics and FRSs, we found right in the middle of their recommended ride height range. Just gives you a really nice lowered look, but a practical streetable look too. So that takes all the guesswork out of it. I mean, you guys know if you've done coilovers before, you always put them on and you're like off by an inch or two in the front and not in the back, and you go around and around fixing it. This just sets it all up. So I think that's a really clever addition to the whole KW experience that I wish other coilover manufacturers would do. Now it's time for Dave, the human spring compressor, to push this down so Pete can
you
put
do
on
that?
the top nut. Oh, buddy, you seen how much excess body fat I've got on here?
Oh yeah, look at that. Piece of cake.
She's on.
She's on, yep.
All right.
So
So,
we tighten it, and then we're good.
yep.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. Oh, look at that, very close.
Yeah, it's a snag fit.
It's never easy with the BMW stuff, is it, DP?
No, I don't know why you keep helping your bros out with these
I know,
BMWs.
we struggle. No, only one bro is into the BMWs.
That's true. Jake's got
Jake's
the
smart.
Civic.
He's got the Civic life.
That's right. He did it right.
He did do it right.
Although he still outsmarted us and made us build him an entire track
That's
car.
true.
So.
All right. Perfect. So that is in. Now we're just going to reverse, like I said, the process here. Bolt it up, put the control arm back in, sway bar, bottom bolt. We're moving on to the back. Wait, we lied. There is one quick tip we're going to tell you, and that is before you go tightening the upper control arm bolts, you want to set the actual suspension to about where it's going to sit and then tighten it, because that way the bushings, when you tighten the nut and bolt, the bushing doesn't rotate, and if you tighten it while it's down and then you rotate it up, there's always going to be this tension. It's going to kind of like push down on the suspension. So when it's at ride height and you tighten it there, that's kind of the relaxed position that you want it to be in. No, I'm not just shaking the wheel. All 5 lug nuts are out. Canada thing, I think. There's just too much corrosion on the center hub, and I can't get the damn wheel off, man. Mallet time, DP.
Bring it. Bring the thunder, Thor.
Why does this happen? This install was going so smoothly.
It was almost too
I gotta
smoothly.
bang on the wheel. People are gonna be pissed about this.
Yeah,
But
well,
it's about the only way to take it off, and I did try kicking it.
gotta come off now, man. Jesus. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't think I was gonna get my sweat on today, but it does happen. All right. Now, this job is 4 bolts, but the one here is, I think, a 22, and it holds the bottom of the shock in place. It is on tight. I struggled with it. This is the bolt I'm talking about, and if you slide your pry bar in here, it's somewhat manageable, but I don't think, see, I just can't get enough leverage here. And quick change up here, I'm trying it from the top. Oh my God, it's so tight.
There it goes. All right. There it goes. That was easy, Pete. What are you belly aching
It was
about?
so easy. I think I got a hernia.
What are you
Might have
belly
pushed some
aching
guts
about?
out of
Come on.
my insides came out there. So I lied. There is a bit more work to do here. I totally forgot that you can't actually remove the shock. Once we loosen the 4 nuts up top, or the 3 nuts up top, and try to slide this out, there is no space here to get the shock out. So this entire control arm does have to be removed off. I actually just moved off to the side a little bit so that we can pull it out. I'll show you, but believe me when I say now is a good time to just take this arm out. So we're gonna loosen the front ball joint here. It will almost get out, and once we loosen this other bolt up here, then we'll be good to go. So let's pop this guy out, and then this whole arm will be free and ready to move around. I'll pop that out, and got ourselves a control arm that we can kind of just move out of the way here. I love being cramped in the back seat of a BMW, and all of that is because we need to access the 3 nuts that are hidden underneath the speaker cover here. So I'm gonna pop this loose, and
That's bizarre.
yeah, kind of pull it up on this, and there we go. And that reveals a speaker, and you actually have to take the speaker out to access the nuts. I keep saying bolts, but they're nuts.
Oh.
They're nuts.
It's just, I just can't get over the fact that that's where the top of the strut tower is.
Oh, you know, BMW life, man. Speakers out. There we go. And now we have access to our nuts. Oh, wait. Forgot to remove the condom, you know?
What is that?
There's
It's like these
some foam insulation. They're trying to keep
random-
this car quiet.
Wow.
Now you have to be very careful as to not drop these nuts, because I did on the other side, and we had to tear the entire back seat apart here, or the back trunk area. So just be very, very careful when you're taking these off. Don't just like gun them off and then let them go. Just hold on to them as you slowly pull them out, because losing one of these is going to cost you a lot of time. With those 3 nuts out of the way, we can now remove the shock. And as I said, if this arm was bolted in here, you would have no room to remove it. So now with it giving us a bunch of space, it's still tight, but we can just slide the shock down slowly, and it's binding up on the top there. It's a bit of a finicky game here. People were removing the sway bar online, or somebody was removing the entire wheel well liner, but I found with this off, you can remove our entire spring and shock combo.
On the rear, you can see the springs under even less tension. You could gun this off, probably not with the tires here as a safety, but you know, Pete's so concerned about safety around here.
I want to make sure that you're all right, man.
I'm gonna pretend that I'm worried about it. You never want to grip the shaft of your shock with vice grips, but in our case we're going to, because the shaft's spinning so much we can't get the top nut off. And Pete had the clever idea of like dropping the bump stop out of the way, because the shaft is never going to go into the shock body past the bump stop.
Yeah, so it's fine.
We should be safe to grab it up here. There we go.
Damn, that worked.
Yeah. Voila. And if we look at the finish on the shaft,
Compare it here.
I mean, I'm so gentle.
Oh, you didn't even scuff it,
It's like
man.
new. It's like new, folks. So
Fantastic.
it's
Look
going to
at
be
you.
okay, everybody. Not that these are ever going to go back on the car likely, but you never know.
Well, we just satisfied the internet.
We did. KW says never use an impact on the top nut. It's going to spin the shaft and do bad things to the shock, but we do it all the time. We're bad people.
Well, there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it, I think.
Well, yeah, we're pretty gentle about it. We don't like just go forever. You just want to get it down so that you've got the correct amount of thread engagement, and we've never had a problem doing it this way. So
Because otherwise, again, you need some special tool.
get into this weird offset wrench deal. So
And see, I'm holding on the shaft here just to make sure to feel the spin so it doesn't spin too much. Okay. All right, I think we're good. Because I feel it starting to spin.
okay,
I think it's locked in place. So let's get this thing back in.
do it.
You've seen the removal process. The installation process is pretty much the same, except you're probably going to fight for, what is it, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
It took us a while.
Hopefully not 10, to line up the bolts here to get up there. And I think they're offset, so you have to have this clocked a certain way, and if you don't, it doesn't go in the hole. But as you can see, there's not a lot of space up there, so it's a bit of a struggle. But once that's done, you bolt everything else in place, and I think we're ready to drop this thing. Let's bolt the wheels on afterwards and see what we've done.
Ooh.
Whoa, bro.
Man, that looks
I think
good.
we dialed this in.
That is nailed it.
Holy smokes.
Damn, first try.
I guess you were right, man. Like the whole thing with KW giving us those instructions, you don't have to deal with it. Like that's
That is-
spot on. That is so much nicer.
Yeah.
We got like 1.5 fingers gap.
And out back, it's
And in
the
the
same.
back, it looks the same.
Oh man, that's money, PT.
Perfect. I
like
love it.
Plan
So
finally comes together.
let's go for a ride and see how it feels actually, because that's also important here. And here we are on my drive home. It's about an hour, and I can already tell so far, oh, the car feels a million times better. Man, oh man, there isn't that kind of like limo, mushy feeling. It's just nice and precise. Like it doesn't crash over bumps at all. It doesn't feel stiff, but it's got just the right amount of compression and rebound that it firms it up to the point where it feels sporty again. So anyways, let's check back with me in about 50 minutes. I'll have a better idea of how the car felt on the drive home. Stop and go traffic, part of the commute, and that means I'm almost home. I've got to say, I am wildly impressed with the V3 coilovers on this car. Yes, they were a little bit expensive, but you pay for what you get. I think my brother spent about 2,500 bucks on these, but considering the AC Schnitzer, God, that's a tough one to say, springs that he put on the stock shocks, it is worth every penny. If we had to do it all over again, I think I would have told him just go straight to the V3s, because the ride, as I said, is nice and firm. But as you can see, like here's a bunch of bumps I'm crashing over right now. Nothing, there's no real roll. There's no real like jounciness. It's fantastic. I am super, super happy with these coilovers. So that's a wrap on this episode. Thank you for watching, and if you want to support us, we have an e-shop where you can buy parts, shirts, and all that jazz. So take a moment, go check it out, or if you want to request a part that you don't see on there, hit us up and we'll do our best to serve you.
Pete's in there taking the top shock bolts off.
Shit.
Look at the spring for the trunk. This thing is gigantic. It's like a motocross spring just to open up the trunk. Never seen anything like it.